The Galactic warriors arrived with their usual arrogance, towering over the human delegation. They were a species renowned for their unmatched technology, conquering countless planets with ease. Their armor gleamed, crafted from materials humans had never seen, and their weapons were far beyond anything Earth could produce. Plasma rifles, energy shields, even personal teleportation devices, all standard issue for these warriors. And here they were, face to face with a group of humans who had, of all things, brought bows and arrows. The leader of the Galactic warriors, a broad-shouldered figure named Zorax, sneered as he glanced at the human delegation. His voice was a low rumble, filled with disdain. "You truly intend to fight us with sticks and string? Primitive weapons from a primitive race. This will be amusing." The others around him laughed in agreement, their eyes glowing with smug superiority. The humans stood firm, their faces unreadable. Among them was an archer, a quiet figure who held his bow with practiced ease. He didn't react to the laughter or the taunts. He simply adjusted the string, his hands steady, his eyes calm. He knew what they thought of him. He had heard it all before. Zorax continued pacing in front of the humans, as if addressing an audience. "Your people are backward, stuck in the past, while we wield weapons that can vaporize entire fleets. You rely on this." He pointed at the bow with an exaggerated smirk. "A relic from a forgotten age." One of the human diplomats spoke up, his tone measured. "Our weapons may seem old to you, but they are part of our history. Our strength is in our resourcefulness, not just in our technology." Zorax scoffed. "Resourcefulness? No amount of resourcefulness will save you when we decide to strike. This galaxy is ours. We have conquered worlds with civilizations far more advanced than yours. Do you think a bow and arrow can stand against plasma cannons, against ships that can travel faster than light?" The humans exchanged glances, but said nothing more. They didn't need to. They had something the Galactic warriors didn't understand, something the warriors couldn't see, blinded as they were by their own arrogance. Zorax, clearly growing bored of the conversation, gestured toward the archer. "Prove it, then. Show me what your resourcefulness can do. Show me how this toy of yours is supposed to stand against our might." The archer stepped forward, his movements deliberate, calm. He drew an arrow from his quiver and nocked it with practiced precision. The Galactic warriors watched, some stifling laughter, others simply shaking their heads. The air was thick with the unspoken understanding that this was a pointless exercise they had already won, in their minds. The archer pulled back the string, his muscles taut but controlled. He aimed at a distant target, one the warriors had set up for their own demonstration, a target that seemed impossibly far for such a basic weapon. Zorax crossed his arms, waiting for the inevitable failure. The arrow flew, cutting through the air with a sharp whistle. It wasn't fast, not compared to the energy blast the Galactic warriors were used to. In fact, it seemed almost lazy, drifting toward the target in slow motion. For a moment, even the humans wondered if this demonstration was the right choice. But then the arrow struck, dead center, and the target shattered. The Galactic warriors paused, their amusement faltering. Zorax narrowed his eyes, his smug expression fading just slightly. "A lucky shot," he muttered. "That changes nothing." But the archer wasn't finished. He nocked another arrow, this time aiming at a more distant target. Again, the arrow flew, and again, it hit its mark with precise accuracy. The laughter had stopped now. There were no more jeers, no more mocking smiles. The warriors were watching closely, their confidence slowly eroding. Zorax stepped forward, his voice growing colder. "Interesting trick, but it's still a trick, a parlor act. Let's see how your arrows fare against real targets." He turned and gestured to a set of advanced drones hovering nearby. The drones activated, their shields flaring to life, buzzing with the hum of alien energy. "Try hitting those." The archer didn't hesitate. He nocked another arrow and let it fly. The drone moved to evade, its shield shimmering, but the arrow twisted in the air, curving impossibly, as if it had a mind of its own. It bypassed the shield entirely, striking the drone and disabling it instantly. The warriors gasped. Now there was no mistaking it. This was not luck. This was not a trick. This was something else, something the Galactic warriors had not accounted for. Zorax, his face now a mask of frustration, barked orders to his troops. Increase the shields. Use evasive maneuvers. More drones appeared, their shields stronger, their movements faster. But the archers' arrows kept flying, each one finding its target with deadly precision. No matter how fast the drones moved, no matter how advanced their defenses, the arrows cut through. The silence from the warriors was telling their confidence had been replaced by confusion. How could this be happening? How could a simple human with a bow be outmaneuvering their most advanced technology? They had underestimated the humans, and now they were starting to realize it. Zorax's voice, once so full of certainty, now had an edge of desperation. "What is this? How are you doing this?" But the archer didn't answer. He didn't need to. The results spoke for themselves. The other humans, watching from the sidelines, remained calm. They had known all along that this was not just about the weapon, it was about the skill behind it. The centuries of practice and discipline that came with mastering an ancient art. The Galactic warriors had made the mistake of assuming that only the most advanced technology could win a battle. They hadn't considered that sometimes the oldest methods could still be the most effective. The archer lowered his bow, his task complete. The Galactic warriors stood in stunned silence, their superiority shattered. The tension hung in the air as the Galactic warriors gathered around, eyes fixed on the archer. They had seen what the human could do with his arrows, but there was still a part of them that refused to believe it. Surely this was some kind of trick, a fluke. They were the most advanced race in the galaxy, and no primitive weapon could possibly challenge that. The warriors whispered among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances. Zorax, ever the leader, refused to show any sign of doubt. His pride would not allow it. He stepped forward, his eyes narrowing at the human archer. "You've had your demonstration. Now we will show you what true power looks like." He raised his hand, and in an instant, the sky above filled with the low hum of energy weapons being primed. Massive plasma cannons emerged from the ground, their barrels glowing with a menacing light. Floating drones, equipped with energy shields, took position, forming a protective grid above the battlefield. It was a display of technological might unmatched in the galaxy. The human delegation watched in silence, unmoved. They had seen the Galactic warriors' strength before, but they didn't flinch. The archer, calm as ever, stood ready, bow in hand, eyes scanning the field. He knew what was coming. This wasn't just a simple display of skill anymore. This was a direct challenge, a test to see how far their technology could push him. But he remained steady. Zorax gave the signal, and the plasma cannons roared to life, their blasts streaking through the air with deafening speed. The ground trembled with each shot, the energy tearing through the atmosphere. It was a sight to behold the sheer power of the Galactic warriors' weapons. No army had ever withstood such firepower. It was designed to overwhelm, to obliterate, to leave nothing standing in its wake. But the archer didn't move. Instead, he calmly reached for an arrow, knocking it as he had done so many times before. Others might have seen this as madness, facing down weapons capable of destroying entire cities with nothing more than a bow, but he had no doubt. He aimed, his eyes tracking the distant target, a drone shielded by layers of energy fields. The first arrow flew, cutting through the chaotic battlefield like a beam of light. The Galactic warriors watched in silence, expecting it to disintegrate upon hitting one of the shields, but instead it twisted mid-flight, dodging through the energy barriers with impossible precision. It struck the drone's core, and with a sudden flash, the drone was gone, reduced to nothing more than scrap metal falling from the sky. For a brief moment, there was silence. Zorax clenched his jaw, watching as another drone was taken down just as easily. The human archer didn't slow down. He moved with calm efficiency, each arrow flying faster and truer than the last. Each shot seemed effortless, as though the chaos around him didn't exist. The Galactic warriors scrambled to adjust their tactics. Zorax barked more orders, and the drones shifted formations, their shields intensifying, their movements becoming erratic to evade the arrows. But it made no difference. The archers' arrows found their targets every time, slicing through shields as though they weren't there. No amount of evasive maneuvers could stop them. The warriors grew visibly anxious, their earlier confidence rapidly eroding. It was one thing to be bested in a single shot, but this was systematic. It was as though their technology had no answer for the simplicity of the human weapon. Every time a drone fell, they were reminded of how they had mocked these humans just minutes before. Zorax's frustration was clear. He couldn't understand how this was possible. The human's weapon was inferior in every measurable way, slower, weaker, archaic, and yet it was outperforming everything his advanced military had thrown at it. He turned to his second in command, barely able to contain his anger. Increase the firepower. Triple the shields. Do whatever it takes. More drones appeared, more plasma cannons fired, and the battlefield turned into a storm of energy and destruction. The air crackled with the force of it, the very ground shaking under the intensity of the weapons. But none of it mattered. The human archer remained untouched, each arrow cutting through the chaos with pinpoint accuracy. The Galactic warriors could only watch as their most advanced drones fell, one after another. Each shot was an insult to their superiority. They had designed these shields to withstand any known weapon in the galaxy, and yet here was a simple human, armed with nothing more than a bow, tearing them apart. The archer's movements never faltered, his focus never wavered. He was in complete control of the battlefield, as though the weapons of the Galactic warriors were irrelevant. Every shot was a reminder that brute force and advanced technology were not always the answer. And the Galactic warriors were learning that lesson the hard way. As the last of the drones fell, the battlefield grew quiet. The plasma cannons powered down, their energy spent, their operators unsure of what to do next. The human archer lowered his bow, the faintest trace of satisfaction on his face. He had done what he needed to do. The Galactic warriors, for all their technology and superiority, had no answer for him. Zorax stood frozen, his fists clenched, his pride shattered. He had never been so thoroughly outclassed in battle, and by a human no less. He stared at the archer, searching for some explanation, some reason for this humiliation, but there was none. The truth was simple: the human archer had bested them, not with superior technology, but with skill, precision, and a mastery of his craft that no amount of advanced weaponry could replicate. The Galactic warriors had mocked human archery, dismissed it as a relic of the past. But now they stood in the ruins of their own arrogance, defeated by something they didn't understand. They had learned a harsh lesson that day. Sometimes the simplest tools in the hands of the right person could outshine even the most advanced technology. And as the dust settled on the battlefield, the human delegation turned to leave, their victory complete. The Galactic warriors could only watch in silence, their once unshakable confidence broken. They had underestimated the humans, and now they knew just how costly that mistake had been. The Galactic warriors had been stunned into silence. What they witnessed was beyond anything they expected: arrows bypassing their shields, precision that rendered their evasive maneuvers useless. This wasn't something they had calculated for. The archer, with nothing more than a bow, had dismantled their pride. But there was still a lingering question, a disbelief in how this could happen. They refused to believe that this simple weapon, centuries old, could have such power. Zorax paced furiously, eyes fixed on the archer, trying to piece together the puzzle. His confidence was cracked, but he couldn't let go of the belief that there had to be some trick, some unknown technology the humans had hidden from them. He approached the archer, this time not with mockery, but with cold curiosity. "How is it possible," he asked, voice low and hard. "How does a weapon from a time long forgotten pierce our shields, outrun our drones?" The human archer said nothing at first. There was no need to explain what had already been shown. But one of the human officials, sensing the tension and knowing that a confrontation might still loom, finally spoke up. "You think everything is about the most advanced technology, don't you? You assume that just because something is old, it's inferior. But you forget that humans have always adapted. It's not just about the weapon, it's about the mind behind it." Zorax glared, uncomprehending. "Adapted? This is no adaptation. This is..." He hesitated, searching for the right word. "Impossible," the official smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that came from knowing something your enemy couldn't understand. "You think our arrows are simple, and they are, in their form. But you're wrong to think that we haven't enhanced them. What you're facing isn't just a bow and arrow from history. It's a blend of our past and our future for the first time." Zorax looked genuinely confused. The human continued, explaining slowly. "We fused old technology with new. Those arrows you mock so much, they're more than wood and steel. They're equipped with advanced systems that interact with gravitational fields, bending them to allow the arrows to move faster than light, evade shields, and hit their targets with precision." Zorax's expression darkened. "Faster than light? No projectile weapon can reach such speeds. It defies the laws of physics." "That's where you're wrong," the official responded. "Your laws of physics. You've relied so much on your own technology that you've stopped innovating. You've stopped thinking that there could be something beyond what you've already mastered. But humans, we never stop pushing boundaries." Zorax was still processing this new information. He wanted to dismiss it, to laugh it off as some elaborate bluff, but the proof was undeniable. The drones lying in pieces on the ground were a testament to the fact that these arrows were unlike anything they had faced before. The archer, standing silently, nocked another arrow, though this time there was no immediate target. He pulled back the bowstring, the arrow glowing faintly with a light that wasn't there before. The Galactic warriors watched in uneasy silence, knowing something was different now. The archer released, and the arrow shot forward with a speed that was no longer just impressive, it was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, the arrow disappeared, crossing the battlefield faster than any of their sensors could track. Before anyone could react, the arrow struck a distant rock formation that was miles away, shattering it instantly. The sound of the impact echoed across the landscape, and for a long moment, no one spoke. There was no more doubting what they had just witnessed. The arrows weren't bound by the same rules the Galactic warriors were used to. These arrows somehow moved faster than light itself. Zorax's eyes narrowed as he tried to wrap his mind around it. "You've developed faster-than-light projectiles?" "How?" When his voice faltered slightly, betraying the uncertainty creeping into his mind. He had never thought such a thing was possible. His people, with all their advanced technology, hadn't achieved anything like this. The human official shrugged. "It wasn't easy, but humans have always found ways to innovate. When we realized we couldn't match your technology directly, we looked for alternatives. The bow and arrow may be ancient, but with the right enhancements, it became something your shields and ships couldn't counter. That's the power of adaptation." Zorax's frustration boiled over. "Your arrows are nothing more than tricks, enhancements. You still rely on primitive weaponry. It won't be enough. We still have the upper hand, with our fleet. With our numbers." The archer didn't respond, but the official coolly replied, "Perhaps. But every weapon has its weakness, even yours. And now you've seen ours. Yet you still don't understand its full potential." Zorax sneered. "We'll adapt too. You can't expect to win with arrows alone." The official raised an eyebrow. "You underestimate us again. It's not the arrows, it's our understanding of warfare. It's our ability to combine what's old with what's new. Your shields, your technology, they all depend on predictable tactics. You've mastered one way of fighting, but you've stopped evolving. We haven't." There was a long, tense silence as the weight of those words hung in the air. The Galactic warriors had been defeated, not because they were weak, but because they had grown complacent. They had believed that their technology was the pinnacle, that nothing could surpass it. But in their arrogance, they had forgotten that true power came not just from the weapons themselves, but from the ability to think beyond them. Zorax's frustration was palpable, but he couldn't argue with the results. His warriors stood in uneasy silence behind him, their earlier confidence gone. They had mocked the humans, but now they realized that they had been outmatched, not by brute force, but by something far more dangerous: ingenuity. The archer finally lowered his bow, his face calm but resolute. He had proven what needed to be proven. The Galactic warriors had seen for themselves the consequences of underestimating humanity. They had mocked human archery, laughed at the idea that a bow could challenge their supremacy. But now they knew the truth. The bow and arrow may have been old, but in the hands of a human, with the right adaptations, it was a weapon unlike any other. Zorax turned to leave, his pride wounded but his mind racing with possibilities. He had learned a lesson today, one that would not be easily forgotten. The Galactic warriors would have to rethink everything they knew about warfare, about the nature of power. And as they retreated, they knew one thing for certain: humanity was not to be underestimated. Zorax couldn't let this humiliation stand. He had underestimated the humans, and now he was paying for it. But this wasn't over. He wasn't ready to concede defeat yet. As he barked new orders to his warriors, the field buzzed with activity. His army, the best in the galaxy, would not be outdone by a handful of humans and their arrows. It was time to crush them once and for all, to show the true might of the Galactic warriors. More drones filled the sky, shields recharging, weapons powering up to full strength. The ground shook as battle tanks rolled into position, each one armed with enough firepower to level cities. Troops spread out, all armed with plasma rifles capable of melting through any armor. The humans had pulled off a few impressive tricks, but Zorax was about to remind them why the Galactic warriors ruled the stars. The human delegation stood their ground, showing no sign of backing down. The archer remained calm, preparing for the inevitable battle. He had already demonstrated the power of the arrows, but this was about more than just proving a point. Now, this was about survival. They knew the Galactic warriors wouldn't accept the embarrassment quietly. There was no turning back from this moment. Zorax's forces moved into formation, creating an impenetrable wall of technology and firepower. Energy shields shimmered, plasma cannons locked onto their targets, and the sound of drones buzzing overhead created a hum of tension. Zorax's voice rang out, cold and determined. "No more games. You've shown what your arrows can do, but this ends now. You will not leave this battlefield victorious without hesitation." The human archer drew another arrow, his face still unreadable. The humans didn't flinch as the Galactic warriors advanced. This wasn't about arrogance or bravado anymore. It was about strategy, skill, and knowing exactly how to use the tools at hand. The first volley came from the Galactic warriors, a barrage of plasma bolts tearing through the air, aimed directly at the humans. The ground sizzled and cracked where the energy hit, leaving scorched marks in the earth. But the humans, quick on their feet, moved with precision, avoiding the worst of the assault. The archer moved with them, staying focused, calm in the face of overwhelming firepower. This was no longer a demonstration, this was war. With a swift movement, the archer loosed another arrow. It shot through the sky, faster than the eye could track, weaving through the incoming plasma bolts like a snake through grass. It found its mark, one of the lead drones, and within seconds, the drone exploded in a bright flash, sending shrapnel flying. The warriors had no time to react before another arrow followed, and then another, each one cutting through their formations with deadly precision. Zorax gritted his teeth. He had thought the humans' earlier success was a fluke, but now he saw it for what it was: pure, calculated skill. These weren't random shots. Each arrow was fired with purpose, hitting weak spots in their defenses, exploiting gaps in their technology. The drones fell, one after another, unable to withstand the onslaught. The warriors on the ground struggled to keep up, their plasma rifles useless against an enemy that moved faster than they could track. But the Galactic warriors weren't about to give up. They regrouped, adapting to the new threat. Tanks rolled forward, firing massive plasma blasts that lit up the battlefield, trying to pin the humans down. The drones that remained activated their energy shields, becoming more aggressive in their attack patterns. Zorax watched as his forces pressed the advantage, determined to overwhelm the humans through sheer numbers. Yet the humans didn't falter. The archer kept moving, firing arrow after arrow, each one as deadly as the last. The other humans, though fewer in number, fought with equal determination, using their own tactics to confuse and outmaneuver the warriors. They were agile, strategic, and most importantly, they were not afraid. Each moment they survived against the Galactic warriors chipped away at their enemies' morale. The warriors were used to easy victories, crushing their foes with overwhelming force. But this battle was different. This time, they were facing an opponent who refused to be crushed. Zorax's frustration grew with every passing second. He had deployed everything: his best troops, the most advanced weaponry, and still the humans fought back with a ferocity he hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just their arrows or their speed, it was their mindset. They fought with a resolve that the warriors had underestimated. These humans weren't just defending themselves, they were challenging the very idea that the Galactic warriors were unbeatable. Another drone exploded in the sky, followed by the wreckage of a tank as an arrow pierced through its armor, disabling its core. The humans were turning the tide of the battle, and Zorax could feel control slipping through his fingers. He had believed in the superiority of his people, their technology, their strength, but now he was being forced to confront the uncomfortable truth: the humans were winning, and they were doing it with nothing more than skill and ingenuity. In desperation, Zorax ordered a full-scale retreat, knowing that to stay longer would mean total annihilation. His forces began pulling back, scrambling to escape the relentless human attack. The battlefield, once filled with the confident might of the Galactic warriors, was now littered with the remnants of their defeat. Drones lay broken, tanks smoldered, and the once proud soldiers of the Galactic warriors fled, their morale shattered. The human archer lowered his bow, watching as the last of the warriors disappeared over the horizon. He didn't need to say anything, the victory spoke for itself. The humans had faced an enemy that was technologically superior in every way, yet they had emerged victorious by using their wits, their adaptability, and the sheer will to survive. They had taken what the warriors had dismissed as primitive and used it to turn the battle in their favor. As the battlefield grew quiet, the human delegation gathered, knowing that this victory was more than just a win in combat. It was a statement, a message to the galaxy that humanity was not to be trifled with. They had proven themselves against the greatest warriors in the galaxy, not through brute force, but through a combination of old and new, of tradition and innovation. Zorax's retreat had sealed the Galactic Warriors' defeat. But more than that, it had marked a shift in the balance of power. For too long, the warriors had believed they were invincible, that their technology would always be enough to keep them at the top. But the humans had shown them that there was more to victory than advanced weapons. There was skill, strategy, and the ability to think beyond what was expected. The humans stood tall, knowing that the galaxy would never see them the same way again. They had faced the might of the Galactic Warriors and won not because they had the most powerful weapons, but because they had the strength to never give up, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The battlefield lay quiet now, the echoes of battle fading into the distance as the Galactic Warriors retreated. The humans stood victorious, but they understood that this was only the beginning. News of this battle would spread across the galaxy. The humiliation of the Galactic Warriors, defeated by a group of humans using what they had once mocked as primitive weapons, would not be easily forgotten. The power dynamic had shifted, and everyone knew it. Zorax, even in his retreat, would not allow this loss to be buried. The defeat had stung deep, and the Galactic Warriors' pride had taken a blow unlike any they had ever experienced. They had faced countless species before, crushed rebellions, wiped out entire civilizations with their superior technology. Yet here they had been bested by a force they deemed inferior. The thought of it would fester within their ranks, driving them to either change or spiral into further arrogance. But it wasn't just the Galactic Warriors who would be affected. Word of humanity's victory would spread quickly through the interstellar networks. Other species, who had lived in fear of the warriors, might now see a glimmer of hope. Humanity, once considered a minor player, had just become a force to be reckoned with. That kind of shift would not go unnoticed by the galaxy's many factions, each one carefully weighing how this newfound power could alter the future. Back on Earth, humanity would learn of their victory, not with wild celebration, but with quiet pride. They had proven what they had always believed about themselves. Humanity had never relied solely on brute force or superior firepower. They had always found strength and adaptability, in the ability to take what was old and blend it with new ideas. The Galactic Warriors had been blinded by their own advancements, never thinking that something as simple as an arrow could evolve beyond its ancient origins. The archer, though silent, had become the symbol of this victory. His skill with the bow, coupled with the technological enhancements that turned his arrows into faster-than-light projectiles, was a perfect representation of how humanity had survived against the odds. They had taken what seemed outdated and made it into something unstoppable. This wasn't just a win for human ingenuity, it was a statement to the galaxy that humanity would not be overlooked any longer. Other species, many of whom had suffered under the boot of the Galactic Warriors, would look at humans differently now. No longer seen as a small, backward planet, humanity was now something to be respected and perhaps feared. The Galactic Warriors had never expected to be challenged in such a way, and if they could be beaten by humans, others would begin to question their dominance as well. A new balance was being forged, one in which humanity stood taller than before. However, this victory also came with its own set of challenges. With their newfound reputation, humanity would face greater scrutiny. Other races would now watch them closely, seeking to understand what had made them so effective in the battle. Some might look to forge alliances, seeing potential in joining forces with such a resourceful species. But others, no doubt, would see humanity as a threat to be dealt with before they grew even stronger. Diplomacy would become more complex. The human government would need to navigate a galaxy where they were no longer just observers, but key players. Their victory against the Galactic Warriors had bought them time and a seat at the table, but it had also painted a target on their back. The Galactic Warriors would not be the last to test humanity's strength, and everyone knew that the next confrontation might not be so easy. For now, though, humanity had earned a moment to reflect. They had fought against impossible odds and won. But this victory had not come from luck, it had come from a deep understanding of who they were and what they were capable of. The Galactic Warriors had relied on overwhelming technology, assuming that brute force would always be enough. But the humans had proven that sometimes the greatest weapon was the one that your enemy never saw coming. The archer had been the key to this victory, but he was not the only hero. The entire human delegation had shown their strength, standing firm in the face of mockery and scorn. They had believed in themselves and in the power of their ingenuity. That belief had carried them through, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As the archer lowered his bow and the humans began to leave the battlefield, they knew that their work wasn't done. This was just one battle, one victory, in a galaxy filled with countless challenges. The Galactic warriors would not forget this defeat, and others would come to test humanity's resolve. But the humans had proven something that day, something far more important than any single battle. They had shown that they could not be defined by their past or limited by their technology. They had shown that in the right hands, even the most ancient tools could become something unstoppable. And most importantly, they had shown the galaxy that humanity was ready for whatever came next. As the humans returned to their ships, the archer looked back one last time at the battlefield. It was a place where history had been made, where the balance of power had shifted in a way that no one had anticipated. He knew that more battles would come, that more challenges would arise, but he also knew that humanity had what it took to face them head-on. The Galactic warriors had learned their lesson, and the rest of the galaxy would follow. No longer would humanity be seen as a species bound by its past. They had taken the lessons of history and forged them into something new, something powerful. They had adapted, and they would continue to adapt. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, but it would not make that mistake again. And as the humans flew off into the stars, they knew one thing for sure: the galaxy had just witnessed the rise of a new force. A force built on resilience, adaptability, and the unwavering belief that anything was possible if you had the will to make it so.